What's up, everybody? You know what to do. We love our YouTube audience. Hit like and subscribe, and let's get after it. Hi, hello, and welcome to your favorite average to good podcast. Call it what you want. I'm Jimmy Conrad, alongside Charlie Chuckwagon Davies, and not Brian McBrizzle McBride, and not Tony Big Tones Miola. We got Marco Messina joining us today.
Yeah!
Paramount Plus contributor, regular Serie A expert. He just knows everything about the beautiful game, especially Calcio. Marco, great having you with us today. How are you?
What's up, boys? It really went downhill from there. You started really high on that intro, and then I saw the names that you compared me to. You're stuck with me today, but it is what it is. Hopefully I can help.
Well, there's 6 Americans playing in Serie A this particular season, so we definitely want some insights into them individually, but just Serie A overall opening weekend. Obviously, it's a property that we own here in the CBS family. Excited to come back and have this league. I think it's one of the most competitive leagues, if not the most competitive league in all of Europe. So talk to us about Serie A. Inter are the reigning champs, but got held 2-2 against Genoa this past weekend. So maybe there's room for other teams to step up and do something else. But AC Milan, we're down 2-0 to Torino. Had to score 2 late goals to make that one 2-2. Napoli getting smoked by hell yes Verona. Roma can't beat Cagliari. And so it just feels like all to play for already in week 1 of Serie A, Marco.
I'll give my little bit of Serie A propaganda off the top, and then we'll get back to reality. But listen, it's the league that in the last 5 years has had 4 different winners. And the rest of the leagues in the world, everybody's got their preference, I understand. But we haven't had that. And I think it's opening week. It's match day 1. We can't get too ahead of ourselves. But it's shown that maybe it's really hard to go back-to-back in this league. And I spoke to Foncesa over the summer because Milan were here in the United States.
Flex of the day, Chuck. Flex of the day. Here we go.
No, I'm just part of the press conferences, some of the stuff going out.
Name drop one.
And I asked him, the first thing I asked him, I said, what do you see differently in Serie A when you were there at Roma than you are right now? And he said the smaller teams have a lot more courage today in this years than they did in the past, where they want to try to play football. They want to try to come at you. They impose their style. And it's probably a mix of the younger guys coming up and thinking like football is different than the way that it was in the past. So it makes for exciting seasons, and I'm excited to cover it all year long.
When I was walking in New York, actually, I was speaking to Zlatan. We were walking side by side.
Okay. Well, what is happening today?
Go, Jimmy, your turn.
I got nothing on that. Keep going. Anything Zlatan is peak.
No, I was just doing Marco. I love Marco. The reason we got him on is because my man can do a deep dive like no other. When you talk about Serie A and all the Americans that are playing in Serie A, there's no one better than Marco to hear about how they're doing and what their prospects are for the season. So I'm interested, Marco, when in saying that you've been around Milan, you've seen kind of the highs and the lows throughout the years with Fonseca at the helm. How do you see Yunus Musah getting an opportunity to grow? Because it was awesome to see him come in and change the game and play a role in that first goal, but also the assist in the second. And Christian Pulisic as the 10, do you foresee that being his spot from here on out at Milan? Because it seems like it's been a smooth transition.
I'll start with Pulisic. That was one thing that surprised everybody when Fonseca was speaking early on in his press conferences, is when he started saying Pulisic could play as a 10. And honestly, the exact quote that he said, I remember it, it was, Pulisic is so intelligent, he could play anywhere in the attack for me, which is a really good thing because last year we saw him play on the right and there was question marks. Oh, he needs to play on the left, but that's Leao's position. And he cemented himself there. And now he could play as a 10 because Fonseca likes a 10 that could run in behind the defense. And Pulisic has that ability. I think that maybe Chukwueze plays a big part in this. His performance this week was not up to par. And if that continues, then we'll probably see Pulisic go back into that more natural position. But it's a good problem to have. Pulisic started off yesterday really well, or 2 days ago, whenever it was. And he had a chance. He got himself into good opportunities. He wasn't able to finish and then sort of fell out of the match. That also was a story of Milan as a whole. Started the first 30 minutes pressing high intensity, winning the ball back quickly. Torino went up 2-0, and then it was the subs that helped change him. And Musah, who you mentioned, was one of them. he brought something more to the attack. He was pushing the midfield forward, and he was winning the ball back. He brought high energy, which is also the story of what he did last year. Every time he came off the bench, he was concentrated. He brought something that the team didn't have, which is such an added value to any squad. And when you hear about the way that his teammates talk about him, the way that he's already spoken about Milan, he just gave an interview to the New York Times where he said that Fonseca's already helped him out in the midfield in terms of controlling the ball, position, his conversations with Zlatan Ibrahimovic that are real, unlike Charlie's, where he's telling him what he needs to do to try to win at this club. Is it ideal that he's not starting from a national team perspective? No, but he's also playing in a high level, and I think it's going to work out.
So talk to us about Fonseca a little bit. He seemed handpicked by Zlatan in some capacity. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I want to know what happens, because defensively they got eaten up by Duvan Zapata from Torino. The guy was manhandling everybody. I think that guy's a large human being, so he's going to manhandle most people. But he was fantastic, and I thought the back four was a little thin, and I wonder if Musah would be considered by Fonseca in that right back spot consistently. And then with Pulisic, I've got a lot of questions here, so you can just pick and choose what you want to answer, Marco. But once he goes out wide, and when I actually let me reel it back. If I'm Fonseca, I come in, I'm like, how do I get Chukwueze, Leao, Pulisic, Luka Jovic had a good preseason. How do I get all those guys on the field at the same time? So I don't think it's a bad thing that Pulisic was starting centrally, but I don't know if he's as effective or can be as consistently effective. So what happens when Chukwueze potentially goes out, Pulisic goes in, out wide right? Who comes in centrally that could potentially unlock that back three or that front three? Because right now,
a new signing.
Go ahead.
Fofana. Yeah,
that's
they just
true.
got
Yeah,
Fofana, so that frees up, and Reinders didn't start yet. So you have a number of options in the midfield. So that, I think that's even makes it more critical that Musah takes his opportunities, because when you're adding a big summer signing like Fofana, who will play every match, then you're saying, okay, who partners well with him? Is it Loftus-Cheek? Is it Reinders? Is it Pulisic? Is it Musah?
Yeah, I mean, it's champagne problems for Milan fans, because they're finally getting that defensive midfielder that they wanted. He needed a presence that breaks up and wins a lot of the balls in the midfield. And I think we'll see Fonseca experiment with the 4-2-3-1 and the 4-3-3. I like it when you have the overload of midfielders. I think it helps Loftus-Cheek have a little bit more freedom to push into the space. And when he's running at you, you speak about big boys. Once he gets into the box, he's a killer there. So I prefer that. And if Chukwueze continues in the first game that he did, then I think he'll go back to the 4-3-3. In terms of defensively, this was my biggest problem with Milan last year. I had question marks around it the entire time. I even told Fonseca himself, I was like, how are you going to fix this defensively? Because if you look at the numbers, Milan finished in second place last year. But look at their defensive numbers. 49 goals conceded. 10 teams conceded fewer goals, including Napoli, which tells you everything that you need to know. Defensively, defense has been a problem for this team. Calabria is out of line. I mean, Calabria cannot be starting for a team like Milan. They also played Salamakers as the left back, which was this experiment that he tried with Hernandez, who just returned late. So there's going to be a lot of changes at Milan, but I'm pretty confident to say that Pulisic, no matter what, is going to be in the 11 for Fonseca.
All right, so let's talk then about another set of Americans, because we had Pulisic and Musah at Milan. We have Weston McKennie. I want to get into his situation here shortly. Team away at Juve. But let's jump to Venezia. They just lost 3-1 to Lazio this past weekend. They were up 1-0, very good goal, and then just fell apart. They just didn't have the quality to keep up and created their own mistakes. As you mentioned off camera, they were trying to play like they were 2009 Barcelona when they're Serie B promoted just recently to Serie A, Venezia, and ended up losing that game. Tati Castellanos, by the way, NYCFC product, excellent goal and an assist in this game, or not goal, and then he created a penalty that led to it. But very dynamic throughout this game. I'm expecting a big season from him. But no Tanner Tessmann anywhere near the team. Gianluca Busio out with his ankle injury that he suffered in the Olympics. What's Tessmann's situation?
I believe, Jimmy.
What's that?
Gianluca Busio pulled his hammy.
Hammy. Sorry, hammies, ankles. Listen, whatever. He's out, everybody. But I appreciate the clarification.
I didn't know either.
So Tanner Tessmann, Marco, what's going on? Because I know that Eusebio Di Francesco, the manager of Venezia, is high on Tessmann, wants him to be in the team, but he didn't even dress, and it looks like there's some friction there.
It's a mess. It's honestly a mess of a situation. You mentioned Di Francesco, coach of Venezia. Every time that he's asked about Tessmann, he's like, don't ask me about this player. He's an excellent player. I want him within the team. You have to ask the club about that. It seems like from the outside, and there's so many contradicting reports, Tessmann has a contract that expires at the end of the year. He was looking for a move. The big one would have been Inter, which would have been massive. They probably would have put him on loan, but either way, being owned by Inter would have been a great thing. Then Fiorentina wanted him. The reports in Italy suggest it fell through because of agent problems, commissions that were going back and forth. And Rocco Commisso of Fiorentina has been big on not wanting to pay agents, which is a whole nother problem in and of itself. So Venezia are kind of in this situation where their sporting director has said, Tessmann put us in a corner. He wants to leave the club, but he also has an expiring contract. So they don't want to have to play him and then lose him for free next year, even though he was such a crucial player in them getting promoted. I remember watching their game against Palermo, and he was so brilliant in the midfield. Very different than when I watched him 3 years ago. Calm on the ball, not losing possession, could break up the lines and go forward. And it's such a shame that this Venezia side could really use him. Now, the one bit of good news is Torino got Venezia's coach from last year, Vanoli, who pulled off an amazing game at the San Siro. His first ever match at the San Siro, this guy did amazing. He wants Tessmann. He helped improve Tessmann. And I think Torino could use him, and that understanding would be great. But according to the director of Venezia at this moment, the offer is not there, or the offer is not good enough. So we're going to have to see how it plays out by the end of the season. But I really don't want to see a situation where Tessmann is sitting in the stands for a year, because that would be awful for everybody.
Yeah, it'd be terrible. And it'd be interesting to see how Gianluca Busio then, once he gets back healthy, how he kind of plans or figures himself into this team, because it could be one of those yo-yo years where they come up and go right back down, which obviously we don't want to see. But Jimmy alluded to it earlier. Let's talk about Weston McKennie and Timothy Weah, because it feels like this has been the third, fourth season. I can't even count how many times Weston's been not counted on to be the guy, and he ends up getting into the starting 11, where he first gets himself into the team and then into a starting 11 and then doesn't look back. What does that say about his quality if Thiago Motta comes in right away and says, he's not part of my plans, yet he plays himself into the plans, just like he did against when Allegri was the manager?
So I don't believe that Thiago Motta didn't want McKennie. Personally, I just don't believe it. I think it's Juventus as a club that looked at Weston McKennie and said, all right, there's a certain price tag on this player. Juventus is in a situation, and you could look at it from Mattia Sule, one of the brightest young talents. They didn't want to sell him. You get an offer for a player, you have to let him go. And Thiago Sule admitted that Thiago Motta said he was in his plans, but Juventus sold him. I feel like that's a situation, because all of a sudden, after a few days ago, McKennie's back with the first team. He's back training. He's called up for the match against Como. He's acted like a total, complete professional. And it must feel like deja vu for him, because last year he had his bags packed waiting for the situation. And now he's in the similar situation where he was one of Juventus's most important players last year. You could argue 1, 2, 3, whatever. He was one of the most important guys in a very difficult season. And I think Thiago Motta wants to keep him in the plans. And contrary to Federico Chiesa, McKennie, they say, is open to renewing his contract, which is very important. If you go into a season on an expiring contract, no club wants that, because then you leave for free and they get nothing. So I think McKennie's acted perfect in this situation. And I think Juventus need to keep him within the squad and to renew him, because he could fit into the plans of Motta. So I hope this situation is resolved from here.
Okay, so where, if he does get himself back into the team in a more meaningful way, where do you think he'll play? Tim Weah out on the right side. We know that he's been stationed there in the past under Maxi Allegri. Maybe it's different under Thiago Motta, who's going to play like a 4-1-4-1, or that's what it's being slated to do. You got David Luiz, who they picked up from Aston Villa, who's a hell of a player. Locatelli, obviously going to continue to step up and want more responsibility, playing underneath Vlahovic. You got Yildiz out on the other side. Where does he fit? He had a career high 10 assists last season. Is he just going to be kind of a spot starter super sub if that plays out? And then conversely, here's my second question for you. If it doesn't work out with Juve in this transfer window, what other Serie A teams do you think he'd be a good fit for?
Fiorentina. Fiorentina is the one that really wants him. And I think he would fit there because Fiorentina has also a very weird mercato where they sold all of their midfielders. All of the big guys have pretty much gone, and I think that they could use him. But onto the second part, Juventus's midfield is completely different this year. You mentioned Luis, Kefren Turam, all look really interesting. They're begging for a deal for cup miners to get into it. But if I think back to when McKennie was signed by Juventus, Andrea Pirlo was actually the key player that wanted McKennie. And I'll never forget the press conference where he said, I want McKennie for the work rate off the ball, for the way that he wins the ball back quickly when the opposition has it, this counter press, which a lot of the big teams are trying to play now. And Thiago Motta did at Bologna last year. I think that fits really well with what Juventus want. Now, I don't know who's going to start off the bat. I don't know how that's going to work. One of McKennie's good traits is that he can play in various different positions. He's good defensively. He's good at breaking the lines. We saw him try to score goals also. Set pieces. He's good at a lot of different things. So I think he plays his way into this Juventus lineup no matter what. There's so many games this year. Juventus are finally back to Champions League. They also qualified for Club World Cup. That's going to be another thing that's happening later on. So if I was Juventus, I would do everything to renew his contract and to keep him within the squad.
What does that say about Timothy Weah then, in terms of playing his way into to Thiago Motta's plans, and obviously whether it's up top or to the right that he's engaged in playing? Because ultimately with Pochettino coming on the sidelines, then you need to be playing to get yourself in the team.
Yeah, Weah seems like a completely different case. The rumors are that he's going to start against Como on the right side. And anytime that I've watched Juventus in the preseason, that width is so important. And there's no player on Juventus. They lacked it so much at times. And it frustrated me to watch, is the man that could drag an opposition wide and then can allow the midfielders to run in behind. And he's very good on his one-on-one, very good crossing the ball. I think he's going to play a key part in Juventus's team. He's the only guy that's got that quality within the squad that's going to be important. And it's not like last year with, I don't think, I'm taking a guess, but I don't think it's going to be like Allegri last year where he has as much defensive duties, where he's playing him as a right wing back and a right back at times. I've heard that Weah has even played in different positions, but they've all been up top.
What's interesting is the move from Maxi Allegri to Thiago Motta. I think Motta's a hell of a manager, did excellent with Bologna last year, and just has a different style and different philosophy than Allegri, who feels more pragmatic and safe and conservative in his tactics.
Boring.
Yes, that's another way to say it. Thank you, Chuck. And Thiago Motta, I think, is really going to hopefully accelerate the development of a lot of young players. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Okay, so Juve plays Como today at 2:45 p.m. Eastern on the Golazo Network. Go over there and check it out. And if you're listening to this later, go check the highlights to see how both of those teams played. Como is now being managed by Cesc Fabregas, so he's going to have his own style that he wants to implement, even though they just got promoted. I'm curious to see how Como does throughout the season. All right, now before we let you go, Marco, you're in New York City right now, but I assume you're heading over to Italy at some point. Is that happening in the future? And which game are you going to? Or games, I should say.
Wednesday night, we fly out, and we are going to Parma to see Parma Milan. Crazy, epic, because we're going to be on big CBS. First time ever.
Whoa. How are you feeling? That feels like a lot of pressure.
I haven't even been on big CBS yet. I've been here for an eternity. What's going on?
Chuck,
I'll send you the flight info.
Chuck, they say you have a face for radio. That's part of the issue here. So
what's up?
You have a face for radio, apparently.
Jimmy, who are you talking to?
Yeah, I'm talking to Mr. Handsome over there, Charlie Davis. So what's interesting is that Parma played against Fiorentina this past weekend, and they should have been up 3-0. They should have won that game. They had a chance to win it very, very late when they were up a man. And I thought I don't know if they're going to surprise anybody now with that type of performance. Milan will come in probably a little bit more prepared and obviously want to have some redemption themselves after having to come back and crawl back to go 2-2 against Torino. What do you expect out of that game? Because you got two teams kind of feeling a little bit different about their current situation in week 2.
So I'm going to tell you the complete honest truth. Once I saw before the season, I saw Parma Milan. I said, oh, okay, this could be a really good situation. You know, Milan's probably going to win. Maybe we'll have some people come to the desk. This is going to be like a nice moment, right? And then I watched Parma play.
They were good. Very good.
My gosh, these guys, it's going to be a tough match. They want to take the game to you. And they got some guys that have come up from Serie B. This kid, Bernabe, that's a Spanish kid. He's from the Barca and Man City Youth Academy. Fantastic. Then they have Dennis Mann. He played for Romania in the Euros. Another kid that looks so good. Boni up top, 20-year-old French guy. Big boy that held up the ball and he made it difficult. So Milan are in for a match, which makes it even better. And I hope that it's a good display for the many new people that are going to be witnessing Serie A. That's the only thing I hope for. I hope it's a good advertisement for this league that I absolutely love and I know has potential to get even bigger. I'm happy that CBS is putting it on this pedestal to be shown, and I hope the game lives up to it.
Well, Marco, thank you so much for hanging out with us on Call It What You Want. You're an absolute beast. Have a great trip, and hopefully you come back and join us on the show very, very soon.
And I can't wait for you to bring back those nice gifts. You know,
Parmigiano Reggiano comes from there.
I need a Parma. Can you get a Parma shirt for me? I would love to have a Parma shirt in my collection.
No problem.
Okay,
no problem.
We'll talk off camera.
I got you.
All right, we're going to take our first break and call what you want. When we come back, we're talking about a big weekend for the Americans, both good and somewhat bad. Don't go anywhere.
Speaking of a new coach, obviously you've heard Pochettino has agreed, nothing's been signed yet, but has agreed to be the next coach for the U.S. men's national team. What did you think when you heard that as a player who I think obviously you showed your quality in Nations League, didn't get the opportunities that I'm sure you wanted in Copa America, but now it's a fresh start.
Yeah, like you said, it's a fresh start, and every player he picks for the rosters coming on will have to earn their spots, and I think it's good that we have a new coach and someone who's so well-traveled as Pochettino to come into the group and help us improve all his players. I think he's probably the right person to lead us to success. I think it's exciting. He's worked with great players around the world. He's worked with some of the best players in our generation, with Mbappe, Neymar, and Harry Kane. So I think we're all eager to get into training with him and just learn from him.
All right, there are the words from Haji Wright, Coventry City's Haji Wright. 2 goals this past weekend, and including a late game winner for Coventry, Haji Wright. Chuck, so he has a statement about Mauricio Pochettino. Doesn't say anything outside of it, though. When I listen to it, I love the phrase, I think he's the right guy to lead us to success.
Yeah.
I think he's the right guy to lead us to success. That is pretty awesome. But Americans abroad, some very good performances throughout this weekend, Chuck. Yeah. But let's talk about Haji Wright. 2 goals, including one where he took advantage of a mistake and scored it in the 95th minute to get a full 3 points for Coventry. That is the way that you start your campaign after coming off a campaign before where, like, can he match that? Can he score the same amount of goals that he did before? That's always a little bit more
I think he's going to top it.
You think so?
Yeah, I think he's going to get more than 16 goals this season. Let's talk about the EFL, the championship. When you get over 3,000 minutes in league play, which is what he did, he had just about 3,000 minutes last year with 16 goals, 7 assists, playing in that left wing spot, which I think was a little new for him. He's typically the 9, or he's played on the right before.
Right.
He has developed so much in the way that he makes runs, the timing of his runs. His first touch has been so much better because you're forced in that league to be on in transition, both offensively and defensively, especially in that left wing spot. And he's improved drastically. We saw that firsthand in the Nations League at the international level. So it's one thing to do it at the club level. He did it at the international level. It's almost night and day from the 2022 World Cup, when people are kind of scratching their heads like, oh, he got in? And we didn't really see much from him. He got the goal against the Netherlands, which is a little bit of a fluke, but hey, all goals count. And from that point to now, it's a new player, and a player that stands a lot to gain from a coach like Pochettino coming in and saying, all right, first things first, to get called into the national team, you got to be playing regularly and playing well.
Right.
He checks those boxes. I really like what I've seen from him, and I think he's got a lot more left.
So, Chuck, I started to think a little bit more about Mauricio Pochettino. Mm-hmm. Just by myself. by the fire, just thinking about, wow, how is Pochettino and how are these players going to impress Mauricio Pochettino? And I think one of the things that I've noticed about him throughout his time coaching all the teams that he has, there seems to be a real thirst and desire and a respect for players that understand how to play their respective position. So that positional discipline. And I think when we start to name all the names of the players that performed well and didn't perform well throughout this weekend, positional discipline, I think, is going to be key. Can you now? Obviously, every coach is going to be asking different things of these players that he might ask different things of them when they come into camp or when we start to figure out how to put the best collection of players together. But that also includes for me spatial awareness and situational awareness. And so if you're doing those things consistently, and then obviously having the end product like a Haji Wright who's scoring 2 goals, and to the point you're talking about, these intangibles, this confidence that he has to hey, guess what? I'm going to put my team on my shoulders right now, and I'm going to make a play. Whether that happens to score a goal or to save a goal or to recognize danger, these are all really important things that I think are going to be part of the equation for Mauricio Pochettino. So I feel like I'm that one Wolverine meme, you know, the cartoon where they're staring at a frame, and then they show the frame and it's or the picture frame, and it's going to be me with Mauricio Pochettino. Anyway, for anybody who knows what the hell I'm talking about, that's what I'm talking about. So notable weekend results. So not only did that game happen, Coventry beat Oxford 3-2 in the second game of the season in the championship, but we had Norwich 2-2 with Blackburn. Josh Sargent scores his first goal of the season. That guy had a ton of chances. I was happy that he
what a great goal.
Great goal. He had a great assist as well. I mean, he was up for it, and it was exciting to see. He didn't play the midweek game in the League Cup when the team scored 4. I was a little nervous, like, wow, they scored 4 without him. He's going to get back into the team. Fantastic. Burnley beat Cardiff 5-0. Ethan Horvath in goal. Terrible. He had a ball roll underneath his foot. Everybody, if you didn't see it, don't even go look at those highlights. It's just total cringe for Ethan Horvath.
It's tough to watch. Yeah,
it's tough to watch. Luca Koleosho scored for Burnley. Obviously, he could play for the U.S. We'll see if Pochettino can lure him into the side. Monaco beat Saint-Étienne 1-0. Balogun started, had one really, really good look, and the goalkeeper made a pretty good save on that. He got subbed off. Minamino scored in that game. And then PSV 3-1 over Heracles. Malik Tillman and Richie Ledesma gets another start at right back. Ricardo Pepi did not get off the bench in that particular game. I saw Paxton Aronson had an assist for Utrecht against Heerenveen. Taylor Booth didn't start the game, came on a little bit later. So yeah, interesting performances. But let's talk about Ethan Horvath. Let's just talk about the goalkeeper situation. Burnley scored 5 goals, Chuck, and he made 0 saves in the game. He had a howler that went underneath his foot. Somebody passed it back to him. He went to trap it, went right underneath his foot and went into the goal. Never a good look there. It's hard to come back from that. The team didn't play particularly well. Burnley's going to be one of the teams to be pushing to go right back up. Matt Turner didn't even dress for Nottingham Forest. That's not a good look. So he's not even the second goalkeeper. He's currently the third. We got Gaga Slonina, though, for Barnsley. He has been rated by the fans player of the match in their first 2 games of the season. So that's a bright spot. But I'm a little bit nervous about this goalkeeper situation, Chuck.
And you have every right to be. You were the center back. You were like best friends with the keeper, right? He's part of your like community there.
Sometimes
it's not good news when Matt Turner is not only not the backup, he's the third string. So playing time, kiss that goodbye. He's got to move. And so you're figuring out what's the next move for him. I think he still has the talent to play in Europe, not in England. I think the Bundesliga would be a great move for him if he can make that happen. I think it's a super competitive league. Even if he could play in Liga and find a good situation, that'd be a good move. But he's got to be playing. That's 1. 2, I think it's harsh on Horvath that opportunity. The ball comes back. You got to clear it out. His head's up and he tries to. It's bad form as a goalkeeper. But he's not the answer either for our keeper in the number 1 position. So then you're looking down the depth chart and Gaga Slonina, and then you're looking at Patrick Schulte. Is he going to move after this season or not?
He has.
And then Diego Cochin at Barca too. He's in Barca B.
Let's talk about Schulte really quick though. Let's talk about Schulte. Columbus Crew booked their ticket into the semifinals of Leagues Cup. They had to go into penalties to make that happen and beat NYCFC. But he continues to show, played for us in the Olympics as well, that he's a good, solid goalkeeper. Do you feel
Solid,
like he
but
needs
that's
to
not
move? But do you think he
solid.
needs to make a move to Europe to like really get on the radar in a meaningful way? Because Matt Turner went to go do that, but Matt Turner went to go do the same thing.
And
had
same
success in
thing with
MLS.
Zach Steffen. In the end, solid is not good enough.
Okay,
for us.
no, I get that. I get
in
that.
what world do we go? Oh, we got a solid keeper. That's good.
Listen,
you know?
sometimes, but for me, if we're talking about a goalkeeper, yes, there's this new element in the modern game where you need a goalkeeper like Ederson, who's going to be your number 10, pulling deep line playmaker at the goalkeeper
Ederson right
position.
now, Ederson's not even playing.
No,
well.
he was not very good with his feet this past weekend against Chelsea. But I just think there's something to be said for being solid. That every game you're going to get me a 7 or 8 out of 10. So I don't want to discount. I get what you're saying. With like, we need somebody who's going to be lights out. And
so you're saying solid's even better than where we are now.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
So you can't go from where we are now to stellar or world class or fantastic if we are where we are right now. I get you, but what I'm saying is there's got to be a plan in place because even Turner not playing in very limited amount of minutes at Arsenal had a very good World Cup in 2022. And I think that was just the right mentality, the right frame of mind going into that World Cup saying, all right, I'm chasing that number 1 shirt at Arsenal, even if it was unrealistic or realistic because Ramsdale eventually was displaced as the one. We need keepers competing and playing every day, but playing at their best in Europe, being tested every week. So for me, it's still getting keepers at the right clubs. I think that's more importantly what needs to happen. You can't just go to the biggest club because of the name and not get an opportunity or be third, second string. Go to a club where you're going to be challenging for the number 1 shirt. So I think from that standpoint, we have a long way to go, but we have some time, not a lot of time, but we have some time to ultimately feel a little bit better about that goalkeeping position. Yeah,
this is as good a time as any for Gaga Slonina to really kind of step up and say, even though League One, whatever you think of the level, is it comparable to MLS? Is it? I think MLS is better, but games are games, right? So those are interesting questions as to can Gaga Slonina, with this little bit of a downturn in the goalkeeper position, really start to cement his status as I can be the guy. And really, again, when you're looking at it from Pochettino's perspective, what are the decisions that he's making in certain situations? And if he continues to make good decisions and makes good saves and those key saves, right? If we've talked about this before, if you're going to win anything of consequence, you need a hot goalkeeper who's making the timely saves. And so if Gaga can prove that he can do that, whether he's playing at Barnsley, whoever or Schulte's playing in MLS, like, can you just make the right saves in the right moments? That goes a long way. All right, other players. I want to get into stock up actually, but other players, Anthony Robinson, I thought looked very good against Manchester United. They ended up losing Fulham 1-0 on a late goal by Joshua Zirkzee. Chris Richards started and played 83 minutes in Crystal Palace's 2-1 loss to Brentford on Sunday in the back three for Oliver Glasner.
Right center back in the back
right
three.
Yeah. Didn't look great. So Tyler Adams didn't play at all for Bournemouth. As we know, he's out. Aiden Morris started and played 68 minutes in Middlesbrough's 1-0 loss to Derby. Probably not his best performance so far in their shirt, but still getting that trust from Michael Carrick in the middle of the field. I think that goes a long way. Brendan Aronson came off the bench to play 25 minutes for Leeds. Austin Trusty was playing against Reggie Cannon. Okay, so Austin Trusty's Sheffield United was playing against Reggie Cannon's QPR. Austin Trusty dressed but didn't play, and Reggie Cannon wasn't even in the 18 for QPR. I was all like fired up for that, and it didn't even happen. DFB Pokal, the German Cup was happening. Joe Scally played. Leonard Maloney played. Jordy Pefok played. Gio Reyna did not play against like 8th division TSV.
That's not good.
It's not looking good. So Luca De La Torre did not dress for Celta Vigo. Apparently he might be on the way out. Jonathan Gomez did not dress in Real Sociedad's 2-1 loss to Vallecano. And we talked about Serie A already. Caleb Wiley started and played 90 minutes in Strasbourg's 1-1 draw with Montpellier. I was surprised that he even got the start. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome for him. But I want to go back to the goalkeeping position because I've seen people in the chat talking about Zach Steffen. And so he comes up with a big PK save and he scores a PK in Leagues Cup, and now they're in the semifinals. But Colorado have shipped a lot of goals this year. And
Right.
for me, I just want to see Zach Steffen happy and playing, because he's dealt with a lot of injuries throughout his career, especially the knee injury that he's had. So where do you stand on Zach Steffen? Because he's playing, but does that mean he's going to get back into, the pool? Do you see him getting back into the pool? Where would you put him on
fresh
the
start? I'm going to use Haji Wright's quote. Everything's
Mhm.
wide open at this point. If Zach Steffen and or any player that's kind of been on the outs or on the fringe, well, under Greg Berhalter, now you're thinking maybe he's got a little juice again. Like, hey, I might still have a chance here. And then when he's seen Matt Turner not play and Ethan Horvath have a stinker and nobody really else claiming it, I'd be out there like, okay, here we go. Let's put Zach Steffen back on the map, So he had a good performance, and if he continues to have that, then I think you have a conversation. I don't know if you have it with the player. Maybe you talk to Chris Armas, the coach of the Rapids, but maybe you do have a conversation with the player and you bring him back in and you see where he's at, right? I mean, we have 10 more windows, 11 windows. You bring him in. I don't know. I'm curious. What would you do with Zach Steffen? He's got the experience, right? He's got more caps and most of the other options.
As long as he's healthy and he's playing.
That's a big
right?
right?
Yeah, but right now he is, and the Rapids are flying. I mean, they've compared to last year, it's a new team, right? And they've gotten a lot of stronger players in higher advanced positions. So for me, Steffen could definitely, but I still think he has a ways to go. He's still getting his feet back under him. But
I heard he doesn't even have a knee anymore. His knee's so bad. He needs a bionic knee at this point. So we'll see.
Hey, Stu Holden, he has half a knee replacement. You know what I'm saying? So,
all right. So let's pick a player. Who impressed you the most? So let's say, who do you think impressed Mauricio Pochettino the most? And maybe if you want to throw a couple options, let us know in the chat as well. Or hit us up at Golasso America on Instagram or on the Twitters. If you want, in the comments, of course. Who do you think impressed Mauricio Pochettino the most, Chuck? And maybe I'll give you two. One, who do you think who impressed you the most, and then who impressed Pochettino the most?
So, one, before I even address it, I got to talk about the comments. I love the comments. I love you.
What's
people.
Up, comments?
MW4523. Charlie, we need to get some more Americans to Hammarby buying my first club, my first professional club, my first love. And I have so much love for Stockholm, which Zlatan Ibrahimovic obviously is part owner now of the club. It's a competitive league. So it's a good stepping stone. So I'd love to see more Americans there. But who impressed me the most this week would be Haji Wright, the way he started in his goals. But Yunus Musah, he's just such a special talent. And to come off the bench in Milan, and it's a new coach, Fonseca. They just signed a new player in Fofana. I love the fact that he came in and made an immediate impact. And the way that he made that impact is, one, obviously part of the buildup in that first goal, but two, getting the assist on the game-tying goal. And that's how he's going to get himself on the pitch. Assists and goals. Because we know how good he is at dribbling and getting out of tight spaces, doing things that a lot of other players cannot do. You need to have something that goes with it, an end product. And that would be the part of his game that elevates him to a new stratosphere. So those are my two guys.
Yeah, based on how Marco was talking about Fonseca and Musah's relationship, and Musah has come out and demonstrated some of the insights that Fonseca has been giving him, you can tell that Fonseca can see there's a real talent there and is trying to give him more tools in his tool belt to unlock that. Yeah, so I'm curious to see how that plays out moving forward and what ultimately where Fonseca thinks is his best position. But I also agree with you. 17 minutes, the game's, you're chasing the game at that point. How can you make an impact? And he played in a hell of a ball.
Absolutely capitalized. Sam Hedges, I see you in the comments. Absolutely spot on. He was more decisive on the ball. It's one thing to keep the ball but I want to see you go forward, drive forward, have an idea of how you can break down teams.
So Haji Wright was the one you were most impressed with, and you think that Musah did the most to like that nod of approval from Mauricio Pochettino.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. All right. So the player that I was most impressed with, I would say, was Gago Slonina. We already talked about goalkeepers, but I'm just going to throw that out there quickly. He made some really key saves, and I just think that position feels so wide open. I'm excited to see how he performs. So we spoke ad nauseum on the goalkeepers.
So he impressed you the most.
I just thought, okay,
Kind of like a shock.
He's taking his opportunity right now.
Okay.
Right, he got thrown into a situation with Barnsley, and he's the number one between the sticks, and he's been man of the match for the last 2 games, and so maybe there's an accumulation from both weekends into this. But I just been impressed with him. Now, the player that I think might have done the most, and this could be, as your resident number 9, I want to get your thoughts on this, with Flo Balogun, and Monaco played in a 4-4-2. So Adi Hooter, the coach of Monaco, elected to go with Briel Mbolo and the strike partner of Flo Balogun together. And because Balogun didn't feel as dynamic, I wonder if that makes Josh Sargent's performance for Norwich even better. I thought Sargent was all over the place, man. The type of running that he's doing, and maybe Flo would do the same if he didn't have someone. His heat map was crazy, dude, and he just was involved in so many things. And talk about being decisive. I just feel like every time I watch Josh Sargent play, especially when he's healthy and fit, and you can tell he's ready to go, dude, that dude is just all over the place. And the type of running that he does, the purposeful running that he does, I really appreciate. And the fact that he missed a couple chances, there was some heroic defending where one of them got blocked. He hit another one off the crossbar, and he stayed with it and then scored an unbelievable goal in the second half with his left foot, which is considered his weak foot, into the top corner. I just was really impressed with that. And then for him to go drive and create an assist for one of his teammates at the back post, I can't say enough about that. And I wonder how that's going to push Balogun and others. And I wonder, when I'm Mauricio Pochettino, because I feel this falls into the Mauricio Pochettino side of things, you look at that and you're like, okay, I've got the guy in Sargent who do the thankless running into the corners. Not to say that Flo won't, or any of our other options, or Ricardo Pepi. Those guys will do it too. But how does that turn into something meaningful? Can that thankless running turn into some type of end product in different ways? And I know that this isn't necessarily a fair comparison because there's different playing styles and different opponents that you're playing against, different levels that you're going up against. But I just was impressed with the little things that I saw, the details from Josh Sargent today, and I think Pochettino would do the same. But as our resident number 9, I want you to chime in on Flo and Ricardo and Josh. What do we got?
Yeah, well, I want to kind of talk about this question that Snot Boogie asked in the comments. So Snot Boogie.
Snot
nice
Boogie.
name.
What's not? Welcome to call it what you want.
He said basically what makes a player dynamic, and it's a great question because I think it's very subjective to people of what makes a player dynamic. In my mind, as a striker who I think prided myself on being dynamic, was the way that you use your pace and changes in the way you can change your speed on and off the ball, going right, going left, not being predictable. For me, that's dynamic. When you come in with energy and you can change a game. And whether it's you're starting the game or you're coming off the bench, if you're calling me dynamic, it's because no matter what tactics we're playing, no matter what formation we're in, I can be a part of it. I can make a difference. And it's because I can adapt with the style based on how I play and my movements and the way that I engage my teammates and the opposition. That makes me dynamic. So that's why I usually favor dynamic players, because you're not put in a box, that you can only play one way. And if the coach changes and a new coach comes in and wants to play a different style, there's no way you can fit, because you can only do that one thing. So dynamic players are I think the kind of the way that football has really evolved with Guardiola when he kind of tried to remove the 9 because he said, oh, we don't need a target striker, and then only to go back to a full-on target striker in Holland to win everything. But you want players who can interchange and change the game, changes their speed on the ball. So that's for me. But in terms of Sargent, I'll go back to that World Cup game against Iran. I thought he was absolutely brilliant, and his movement has always been good. But can he hold up the ball? Can he figure out ways of knowing when to check and when to go? The right balance of being aggressive versus keeping the ball for your teammates and opening up space for your teammates with good runs. And so, not only has he done that extremely well at the highest level, but now you're starting to see an edge to him, and he can assist as well as score goals. And that's the dynamic player that we always wanted to see with the U.S. men's national team, leading the line. And I felt like he was really on the cusp of taking that position, grabbing it and saying, this is mine. And then he gets injured. And so now he's had to battle back, and he has so much experience. He's always been a top player since he was a young player, but hadn't necessarily transitioned to being that type of having that type of effect at the highest level, especially at the national team when the game's so much quicker. And so now I feel like he's really grown. I would like to see him move to play in a top division because I think he would be great to go back to maybe a top club in Bundesliga, maybe a top club he could even go to a top club in Spain. But if he continues to score goals at the rate he is, maybe he has another chance in the Premier League next season.
Yeah, I'm excited. As long as he stays healthy. That's the one thing I think that's been holding him back. He gets that momentum. Injuries. And then he gets hurt. And then all of a sudden, it's like he's got to start all over again. I loved your definition of what a dynamic player was. That was spot on. Nothing to add there. But we're going to take our next break and call it what you want. When we come back, we're going to talk to Thierry Henry's #1 fan, Chuck Davies, about Thierry Henry's future. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Call It What You Want. I'm Conrad Dino alongside Chuck Wagon, and it's just us two. Right, and so hit us up in the comments if you guys want.
It's been a smooth show.
Yeah,
and by the way, none of you guys
yet.
triggered me. None of you guys have been triggered me. I'm too good. I think I may be in too good of a mood to be triggered, but I don't know.
I don't know. You maybe you're maturing. He's not, everybody. He just hasn't been triggered. You guys are doing your job in the chat, and I'm a little disappointed that hasn't happened just yet. All right, so let's talk about a few moves. I know that I teased Thierry Henry, but let's start with Marc McKenzie. He's making the move from Genk in Belgium to Toulouse in Liga in France, and I think this is a good move for him. Was on the bench in their first game, but didn't get in, which makes sense. He just made the move, obviously trying to get assimilated with his team, but I think this is a nice move for him in particular. And what I think is interesting, Mauricio Pochettino has coached in the French league, so he knows the level. He knows what Marc McKenzie is going to see on a week-to-week basis, and I think that's of big value. Belgium, a little bit of an unknown commodity in terms of level, and I'm sure
it's a feeder league. It's a feeder.
Yeah,
league.
right. And well, we could argue Ligue 1 is as well, but it's a lot more competitive, I would argue, and I just think it helps that we have, like, Pochettino has been at home with his coaching staff going, okay, how do we get a win against Montpellier? He knows that league pretty intricately, so I think that's a benefit to Marc McKenzie. How are you feeling about this move for him?
I love it. Marc McKenzie is a great person, and I've seen his talent because I've gotten a chance to play with him when he was obviously a rookie with the Philadelphia Union, but he's come a long way, and he's had to work his butt off to be consistent at the center back position with Genk. And he was playing next to Carlos Cuesta, obviously, who we saw excel in Copa America. But this, for me, is one of those moves where you're taking a huge step up. The pace is going to be dramatically increased, and then you're playing against players who are playing in Europe. And you play against PSG, you're playing against Lille, you're playing against Rennes and Marseille. These are top clubs in Monaco. So I'm excited to see how he fits in, and if he can succeed here, guess what? He's getting a call from Poch direct.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, one thing that we hadn't brought up yet is Cameron Carter-Vickers, who just started for Celtic this past weekend, 3-1 win for the Hoops over Hibs. And Cameron, CCV was very good. They crossed over at Tottenham. That dawned on me this weekend as I was thinking about Mauricio Pochettino. That's something we hadn't mentioned before. So what happened, though, was that CCV never really broke into the first team and went on loan for all the years that they split, a couple of years at Tottenham. But there's a familiarity with Cameron Carter-Vickers with Mauricio Pochettino. And do you think that's a good thing? Because clearly he didn't do enough to get into the first team.
Yeah, I was going to say he didn't play.
Right. So is it a good thing that he knows your game pretty intimately, or is it not so good? And I would say that he's obviously grown as a player since then. But CCV didn't look great during Copa America. lead up to Copa America. It just didn't look very sharp. And so I wonder what that means. So yeah, where are you on this Pochettino CCV relationship?
I wouldn't. Would any of us be shocked if he got called into a camp and
No,
Poch would
I think
go,
he should be.
Let's see how much he's progressed, right? Because he was young when he was at Tottenham playing under Pochettino. So at that point, he was not ready. And then you go on loan, then you end up at Celtic, you become one of the best defenders in the league, and you're playing in Europe. So I think for Pochettino, he's going to go, all right, let's see how much you've grown since the days that I knew you as a player. So I don't expect him not to get called in. I think he'll get called in. It's just, will he take that opportunity? And then how much does he see? Does he call in Mark McKenzie right away? Does he call in, Chris Richards and Trusty? And, who does he call in? Because I'm sure he's going to be watching all these players play. And there's a good question here in the comments, Jimmy, just about center backs and, what makes a good center back at this stage in the international game, a U.S. men's national team player. And, I guess what are the qualities needed to partner, let's say Chris Richards or, whoever is playing in the back. What are those? How do you find the right balance?
Great question. Yeah, Dan, thank you so much for listening and good question. And thanks for teeing that up, Chuck. I will say that defensively, can you do two things at once? So can you cover the respective player in your back line that might need some cover at that point? Or if you can see things start to unfold in transition, are you putting yourself and your teammates in good spots to make plays? I remember Richard Goff was my teammate when I was in San Jose my first year. He played for Scotland and he played in 2 World Cups for Scotland. And, I asked him for advice. And then the one thing he said to me was you got to put out fires before they start. And yes, I understood what that meant, but to actually go out there and execute that in real time, making split-second decisions and having the trust of your teammates to put them in good spots to make plays is something different. And so it took me a long time to really have that evolve in my own game. So when I think about it, that would be one, putting fires out before they start. But that falls into, can you do two things at once? Essentially, can you defend your own player, but also be in a position to help out if needed? Can you recognize danger quickly? This is all the defensive side of the ball. And then when we have the ball, the number one thing I think because when the defenders, and you guys see it, no matter what the level, if you're having a team that wants to play out of tough situations, you got to be composed and you got to be confident and you got to want the ball. Chuck, you've been in spots before or played with guys before where some days they want the ball and some days they don't. And you need to be someone that wants that responsibility and put yourself in tough spots to play out of difficult spot, and knowing that if you lose the ball, that could end up being an easy goal.
Do you see Pochettino playing direct, or do you see him playing like pretty
he feels very
played out of the back?
No, okay. I think there'll be an element of, based on the opponent, is this one like, let's say the U.S. versus Canada? I still don't know. Yes, they've announced that Mikey Varas is going to take over those games. But if Pochettino's like, I want to take those games, what are they going to say? Like,
well, they could do the same thing that Emma Hayes did, which is like coach from Skype or Zoom, where you're basically telling Twyla Kilgore to say, all right, these are who's going to play. These are the tactics. And then she's going to be watching from afar. But Pochettino could still have some influence on who's picked, how he plays.
Totally. Oh,
right?
I would have said,
but I don't think he'll be on the sidelines.
Okay, that's fair. But let's say Canada, though, for instance. We know that Jesse's coming. We know he's going to high press the shit out of us.
He's coming.
We know that's coming. But the best way, if you can play through that pressure, then Canada's they're in trouble. Now
we've already done it.
Right. So if we play through them, then there's an element of that's going to lend itself to getting our guys in good spots to make plays. If we elect to just lump the ball and try to win the second ball in their half or higher up the field, that's a different element of the game. And you might want to bring a different set of players, potentially a different player profiles to solve those problems. So yeah, I'm curious to see what we try to do. But if you have players that want the ball under some intense pressure, then that's going to be, it's going to be interesting. So
this is a great question from Cyrus Pearson. Do you think Tim Ream will get called up or start games under Poch?
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know if we should.
Come on, our resident center backs got to know. What's your preference?
Well, in terms of being a leader, being able to organize, being able to play out of pressure. Another thing I didn't add, can you hit that big switch, which is huge? Like if a ball comes back to you, it's tight on one side. Do you have it in your bag to be able to hit that big 40, 50-yard switch to the other side and unlock that pressure? Not all of our guys have that. Tim Ream has it. So if you're trying to settle the team right away, yeah, maybe you bring him in and then you just kind of see where everybody else is in the player pool. Okay, maybe bring him in against Canada and then you can evaluate accordingly, even though he's a known commodity at this point. But yeah, there's
some of these people in the comments, they're bringing the heat. They're bringing some good questions. So
I love it.
Hey, they've been doing their homework.
I
Appreciate y'all.
Keep doing your homework. Listen. What I love about our fan base in particular is that they're becoming more and more students of the game, and the intricacies and subtleties and nuances of how we should move as a group and individual players and formations and how it all. I love it. So keep all these questions coming. All right, let's talk about coaches a little bit more. Thierry Henry has just announced that he is stepping down from the Olympic team and just coaching with the French Federation as our number one Thierry Henry fan, the biggest Thierry Henry fan I know in Chuck Wagon here, Charlie Davies. What are your thoughts on this, and what does that mean for his future? Do you think he's looking to go get a bigger coaching job somewhere else, or do you think he wants to come back into the studio with our Paramount Plus family?
I think it's job well done. I mean, he came into that situation to say, all right, here's something different. Come in and show that I can, one, coach talented youth. Two, I can take this team, give them an identity, and have them compete to win trophies. And sure, they didn't get the gold medal, but they got the silver medal. And they were fantastic to watch at times. And I liked all the wrinkles he tried to throw in at them and getting them to change in different formations, in and out of the ball, in and off the ball. So for me, I think he said, you know what? I've done all I can do for this club, for this national team. These you set up now, and I'm ready for another challenge in the future, whatever it may be.
Okay. Very diplomatic. You're going to be the right-hand man if he ever runs for political office. Unbelievable. Good
hey, I'm just speaking the truth. What do you want?
No, I love it. And one more coaching carousel bit of info. San Diego Wave, NWSL at point, landed Donovan as interim coach. He was coaching the San Diego Loyal before that team folded.
How do you feel about that, Jimmy?
I mean, I think if they're having some coaching issues and they can't settle on anybody, and it didn't go well with Casey Stoney to start the season, even though I think she's a good coach, and you don't really have any options, and you've got this other smoke that's going around Jill Ellis, the president of the team, you just let's just make it really simple. Landon's available. He's in the market. He's got some experience coaching. Let's just bring him in and see what happens. From what I understand, though, Landon coaches like a proper manager, and he has like a first team coach that comes in and runs things. He's just kind of making sure everything's pointing in the right direction. So I just think there's a lot going on with that club in particular, for both on and off the fields, and this just feels like an easy solution. We'll see how he does. I'm excited to see how Landon does in this one. All right, let's talk about Leagues Cup, because we had 8 teams coming into this weekend. We're now down to just 4, and they're all MLS teams, Chuck. Only MLS teams left in this competition. Columbus Crew beat NYCFC. It was 1-1. NYCFC were down like 18 seconds into the game. Columbus were down 18 seconds into the game. They end up coming back. Cucha Hernandez, by the way, is unreal. That guy just scores all types. He's too little to score headers. He's scoring headers. They end up beating NYCFC and Pens 4-3. The Philadelphia Union, though down a player, end up getting that one 1-1. They beat Mazatlan in Pens 4-3. The Seattle Sounders got whooped at home by LAFC 3-0. LAFC are my favorites. The LAFC looking good right now. Club America and Colorado Rapids, that is 0-0 through 90. And then it goes to the 10th pen. And Zach Steffen scores the winner. And they had their goalkeeper, Malagon. He ended up missing. And so there's no team. I do want to say this. After the game, the Brazilian manager for Club America, Andre Jardim, said, I now see the leagues as equal. There's not much between the two. What he said. However, he went on and apparently he mentioned that if the tournament had been opposite, right, in all the games in Mexico, he thinks that Liga MX would win, but not by much. These are some other notes. But that's MLS I like that.
Long way.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm pumped to hear it too.
So what do you think? We got Crew, Philly, LAFC, and the Colorado Rapids, the resurgent Colorado Rapids under Chris Armas. I like LAFC to take it at this point. Doesn't matter who they're facing. It doesn't even matter. They're the only team that has a nice identity. They all have identities, but it's just like
bandwagon. You're such a bandwagon fan. It's crazy.
Okay. It says
You
Thierry
just
Henry, number
are
one
you
fan.
kidding me? This guy goes, "Oh, LAFC, they're gonna win, of course. It doesn't matter who they play." You're just saying that because they have all these players, these big name players, and Denny Buwanga.
What we got?
You're just
Like,
hopping on the.
they've
You're
got
hopping on the LAFC train.
75-year-old Kai Kamara scoring goals for them.
It's crazy. I can't believe you.
Shout out to
You've
Kai.
changed.
Okay, I've changed. Here we go. Yeah, right, dude. So Columbus will play Philly. That game is on Wednesday. Both games are on Wednesday. Columbus, Philadelphia, and then LAFC, Colorado. It's a good Final Four. You got Wilfred Nancy doing it with the Crew. You got Jim Curtin with Philly, Cherundolo with LAFC, and then Chris Armas with Colorado. And all these teams outside of Philly, I think is the only team that's not maybe performing consistently at the league level.
No,
but everybody else seems to be playing pretty well. So, yeah, this is a good opportunity for Philly to maybe kind of right the ship for their season and maybe carry this momentum into the back half, into the stretch run, which is where it matters the most for MLS. Well, you didn't answer my question. Listen, everybody, Chuck's not answering my question. Who do you think's going to win?
No, I'm just surprised I didn't trigger you. That was intended to trigger. Yeah, I tried, but it's obviously you're too good.
Too good.
I'd say LFC do get into the final.
Here we go.
I said get into the final. I didn't even get to finish.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Now, here's my thing. I think if it's the Crew versus LAFC, I think the Crew take the trophy.
Ooh, that's a rematch of MLS Cup last year.
But the thing is, with when Andre Blake is playing the way that he's playing right now, when he is in his top form, focus, and healthy, it is really tough to beat the Union with the way that they play. So, given that he just came up with those massive saves, I know it's in Columbus. Philly could be really tough to beat when Andre Blake is playing that. However, I do think the Crew take the trophy. I think DeJuan Jones is also a.
How did New England give that guy up for basically nothing as a joke? I tried to trigger him in the last part of the show, and he's biting his tongue. Chuck is biting his tongue, everybody. Anyway, that's all I got. Final thoughts. You got any final thoughts, Chuck Wagon? Any final thoughts? Americans abroad, leagues.
I guess my final thought is with the YouTube comments. I mean, I could not be more impressed with the insightful questions. Actually, these are legit questions from all you guys and the insight that I'm seeing all up in here. So
we should give Chuck. We should give coaching licenses out. Like, call it what you want.
Seriously, I would have gave a couple C licenses out after some of these comments.
We should have that. We should have it. We can make it a little bit cheaper than U.S. Soccer's. That way we get more people
seriously.
to sign up,
And nobody could trigger me. I saw a couple of you guys throwing out some bait. I wasn't taking it. Not taking it.
Well, thank you guys so much.
Bernard stuff. You're not getting me.
No, Herb Bernard over Pochettino. Cyrus is trying to get him. If I hear one more thing about Herb Bernard.
If I hear one more thing about Renard to the U.S. men's national team, I am out of here. I am done.
He is handsome, though. I guess we can give him that. All right, everybody, we are done for today. Thank you for hanging out with us. As always, make sure to follow Call It What You Want wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to leave a rating or a review, we would greatly appreciate that. And then make sure you catch us on the CBS Sports Golazo Network. And that is it. Thank you for hanging out with me and Chuck. And maybe
Tony Miola's across the hall. He says hi.
Yeah, Tony Miola says hi. McBrizzle always says hi. We'll catch you guys soon. Thanks for hanging out. Later.
Let's go.
Herb Bernard.